Echo 5, do you copy? Echo 5.
Echo 2, good morning. Nice of you to drop by.
Feeling alright, sir? Thought we lost you.
Right now, I feel like I can take on this whole podcast myself.
I know what you mean. Ready to send that transmission to Echo Base?
Yes, sir. R10, patch through.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hoth Transmissions. Today we are going to be finally discussing the finale of Andor. But before we get into that, guys, just remember to jump down below and be able to check out our link tree, which is in the description. You'll be able to see our Instagram, Discord, and our merch. So definitely take a look at that because I think you guys will like it. So now let's jump into Andor. And what a very interesting episode. Like, I kind of felt it was a little underwhelming for a finale, but at the same time, I think it was just enough. I'm kind of like on the fence on it right now.
I have to agree. I thought we would be very, very different in our opinions, but as far as a season finale goes, not a strong one.
No, I feel like the Prison Break had a lot more action and a lot more like more at stakes. I mean, like this one was cool. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it had some really good moments, but it felt like to me a lot of talking and stuff like that, and then you had the big action scene, and then nothing.
Yeah, because like it starts off and you got Wilman. He's sitting there building some type of machine. I'm not exactly sure what it was. I don't know if it was a weapon that he used later on. I didn't really follow him too much in this episode, but I noticed that he was making something, so I'm sure it had something to do with the episode. But we got everybody coming to Ferrix, and this is supposed to like really draw everybody in and put everybody's arc on the same page. So everything that's been happening in this entire season, it's all coming together right here. However, you kind of expect a big thing to happen because as Deidre's coming in and flying, it's very dark, it's ominous, there's a little bit of a rainstorm, or dark clouds at least, and it's like, okay, that's foreshadowing some kind of storm that's going to happen, like figuratively.
Yeah, I mean, even the opening credits music was very, brassy and funereal-esque. So you kind of expect something sad to happen, which would be, the funeral side, but it kind of had that undertone of there is more that will happen in this episode than the funeral. So that kind of grips you. And then you've got the is it the Lambda class, the same as the shuttle Imperium, flying in, landing, and that's really it's a lot of talking in this episode.
Yeah, and they kind of spend a little bit more time on the characters again, which is cool. And this is something that I do like about this episode because the entire season is we get to see a different side of the Empire, because we see them as like this authoritative figure. They're just there for power. You don't really get to know the characters too well. Deidre is probably one of the more fleshed out characters that we've seen in the Empire, because again, they humanize her and make you feel, okay, she's a real person. Because when she gets there, they're like, oh, you're just in time for dinner. She's like, I'll eat later. I just need to change. And I'm going to do a quick walk around the city just to kind of scope things out for tomorrow. And I found that very interesting. It's like, why put that much detail on a character? Why try to? I like, oh, just in time for dinner.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm always happy to see more of Deidre and how her character's sort of progressing, and in the sort of action scene of this episode, you
It's
see a
very
complete.
underwhelming.
It is, but you do get to see a different side of Deidre at the same time, which I really enjoyed.
I think what I liked about it too is that just because they're in a state of power and they have this authority, they're not beyond human emotion and anxiety in the moment.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it it is interesting. She does want to keep Cassian alive, and I think it's just so she can kind of, I guess, go after Axis. But she mentions it several times. She's like, I can't stress this enough. I want him alive. And I just kept thinking in my head the line that Vader says, "Tear the ship apart, but I want them alive."
yeah. It was. It felt very, very throwbacky,
Mm-hmm.
while at the same time being something completely new. But
Yeah.
it was. I mean, don't get me wrong. The episode was interesting, and it's obviously well worth a watch. If you've got up to this point, you're dedicated now. But at the same time, in all honesty, for me, it could have just been a mid-season episode. It didn't feel like a finale.
I mean, it did up until the last scene with Cassian. I think that's where it got lost for me. Because I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff that happens in this episode. Like, I love the build up on this episode because you can kind of just feel the pressure is just kind of continuing, and because it starts off with Brasso and a couple of the characters like, oh yeah, we just heard from Cassidy, not on a secure line, and they're like, what's he doing calling? It's like, okay, well, all right, everything's gonna be emotion. He's coming here to see. He knows about Marva now, so he's gonna come see Marva, and you have that one character who's like, if you know something, don't tell me because I don't want to know. The less I know, the better.
For an episode of Andor, for a season finale of Andor, there wasn't really much Andor involved, which I get because it is telling the story of how he got to where he was in Rogue One. But at the same time, it could have just been so much better.
Yeah, he stayed in the shadows quite a bit, and that's what I found really funny. It's like, okay, you got this Empire who's supposed to be really organized, checking out like, okay, we've loosened their air support, so he won't be put away by trying to get through. It's like, oh, it's easy to get in. It's like, okay, first part of the trap. But when he lands, they don't have people there like watching the ships. And when you even see Luthen land, it's like, how are they not watching these ships come in and watching where they land?
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like it would be like a whole Cloud City thing. Like you got the two ships escorting you. It's like, oh, yep, we'll let you through, but we got to escort you.
See, I wasn't expecting anything like that, just purely because it's a different sort of scenario. I know that the Empire is heavily involved on Ferrix now, but I wouldn't expect a squadron of TIE fighters or anything to be there, which I'm actually happy about because I think that would have been a step too far. But at the same time,
But the Empire taking a step too far. What?
I know. I can't believe I just said that. But no, I mean, at the same time, it is very much a case of why is no one monitoring where ships are landing? Because, especially someone like Luthen that they know that ship exists because he had that issue with the Empire a few episodes ago.
Unless they just never reported it in, and it's on another. I'm pretty sure it was on another planet, and he probably knocked out their communication. So by this time, who knows?
True, but I think it was a bit of a cop
Too
out.
easy.
Yeah, it was way too easy for everybody to be there, all at the same time, and
Nobody running into each other.
Yeah,
by accident.
Yeah, we'll go into sort of who does what in this episode, which there are some bits which worked really well, and others which to me just felt really forced.
Yeah, like you would imagine, like for the funeral service, that they'd still be watching the hotel and their prisoner Biggs.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're holding Biggs in this place. We're questioning her. Okay, so if Cassian shows up, so there's two things: the funeral, he might be there. Okay, but if he finds out his friend is being held captive in a hotel, nah, he's not gonna be stupid enough to come over here and rescue her. Guess what? He is.
Yes, he is.
And because they underestimated it, he walks out there without any issue. Maybe running into a little bit of a death trooper, but other than that,
I mean, the scenes that where Cassian was just shooting people and didn't really blink about it was so well done. I enjoyed those. It's just most of the rest of the episode, not a fan.
Yeah, I mean, there are some parts that I liked about. I mean, there's a lot of parts I liked about it, but I guess the parts I didn't really care for was the parts with Vel and Kaz. Like, I get they're there, but now that they're there, like Vel's on some kind of like she's in some mood against Kaz and neglecting the mission that they're there for. It's like, oh, you're not paying attention to me, so I'm gonna be pouting over here. And I like Vel, but this just seemed like such a character change that I was like, okay, not understanding what they're trying to do with these two characters.
I think because we've seen so many different sides of Val now, it's hard to see where she is as a character, because we know about the Mon Mothma relationship.
Yeah. Maybe she's kind of upset about what Mon Mothma is about to do. Because I didn't even think about that. Because I remember she wasn't a big fan of Mothma doing the whole courtship with her daughter.
Yeah.
And now she knows she's going through with it, and so she's not happy about it. So she comes down and takes that out on Kaz. It's like, okay, my niece is being taken and forced into a marriage, and there's nothing I can do about it. I need to focus down here, but family's important.
See, I just don't honestly know, because she does seem.
Yeah, it's all speculative.
Yeah, she does seem very sort of mission. What's the word? She's very much into
focused.
Thank you. She's very much mission focused, but at the same time, I think because there is that relationship with Kaz as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of getting in the way, and that's what's caused all the tension and drama between them.
Yeah, no, she walks through the door and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm watching across the street. There's this ISB agent. This lady just showed up. All this stuff, and she's and Belle's basically like, "Hi, nice to see you. How was your day? Oh, my day was good." Like, she kind of gave off that vibe. I was like, okay, all right. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean that's what I got as well. It was very much right. I get that you're here, but at the same time, shut up and let me do my job.
Yeah. Basically, like one of them stayed focused, and I was expecting them to do a little bit more with Luthen and all that. It just kind of seemed like the whole episode was based on the funeral, and I think they weren't really trying to focus too much on Cassian. But I mean, the show is called Andor, and his mom's last name is Andor. So I think they kind of like, okay, we got Cassian over here, but we got this Andor over here, so it kind of makes sense. Spark of the Rebellion, Andor on Ferrix, and it's centered around the Andor line.
I quite liked that sort of connection to it. That the series is called Andor, but this episode wasn't based on the Andor that we would have thought it would have been. Which honestly and genuinely loved that fact. But at the same time, it's like it could have just been a better finale. Honestly, like this could have been midway through the season, and I don't think anything like the plot wouldn't really have changed.
I mean, I'm kind of taking it as, I know that they're introducing it as 2 separate seasons. However, they did break it into 12 episodes, and then both seasons together 24 episodes, which is kind of a standard American season. And I would personally actually just take it as a mid-season finale, because they are titled by episodes and not season 1 episode 2 or season 1 episode 5, like that time. It's literally just Andor episode 1, Andor episode 2, and they kind of adopted the same format with Ahsoka. And
That is
so because it is a limited series, it's not meant to be like all right, we're doing a whole show about Andor, so expect like 10 seasons of it. It's like, no, part 1 and part 2. And so I think if you go in with that mentality, the finale doesn't seem so underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, looking back and how you just explained it, it does make more sense. Because I mean, I think the problem is because there's so much of a time gap between having season 1 released and having season 2 released. It felt at the time, and even rewatching it compared to every other episode that we've had, it was just more underwhelming than anything.
Yeah, it's because the whole episode felt like it was building up something big. Like even when you get to the funeral service, you got that music playing, which I love the funeral music. That I thought that was very appropriate. It definitely kept the vibe of the funeral, with everybody marching down, doing the drums and all the different instruments that were pushed into it. I was like, man, this is actually a really cool ceremony. Like, I would have gone out of my way to watch this marching band come through the streets out of respect for, I guess, the president of the Daughters of Ferrix, who seemed to be a very prominent social group, and as what that one Imperial officer called them, local annoyance.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
Funny, and I guess weirdly true, because I mean, as the hologram will say, I love the fact that there was the hologram and the hologram speech,
and it came from B.
Yeah. And I love that you could see the look on each character's face when, obviously, it was always kind of written that there would be a bit of a scuffle against the Empire, but that speech just really kicked it off.
Yeah, because when Cassian's talking to Brasso, and Cassian's like, no, I always meant to come back. She was supposed to live with me. I had this big plan. This is what's all this stuff was supposed to be happening. And Brass was like, well, your mom told me this. It's not your fault. And you were just a spark that ignited all of this. It's been inside her. She's been wanting to stand up. And even in her great speech on the hologram, she's like, yeah, let's get rid of the Empire. We need to, they're visitors, but now we're realizing they're not leaving. So they've overstayed their welcome. And we've all been asleep to this. And if I could go back, then I would have woken up a lot quicker.
It's
And
just
so her whole speech was good.
Yeah, I mean, just those words conjures up so many different emotions that, as a watcher, it's like, okay, this is.
She got me ready to fight. I was like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, it's one of those great movie/TV speeches, where the sort of hero character does this big speech and gets everybody inspired. And it's coming from this elderly, frail-ish woman that doesn't want to give up. And it's like, it's literally, what? Andor could have said that, or technically Andor did, just the wrong one. Cassian could have said that, and it would have, the same effect. But this was...
I don't know if it would, because I don't think he's there yet. Or that same, ambition or that same intensity of wanting to fight the Empire. Yeah, he doesn't like fighting them, or he doesn't like the Empire. But he doesn't seem like he's ready to be on board with that level of commitment yet. Because he didn't really join in. He just went to go save Bix, and he's like, all right, I'm out. Peace.
True, and I guess because that was his goal ever since he knew that Bix was taken, was to save.
Even though Brass is like, dude, that's a bad idea. He's like, you shouldn't even be here.
But it's interesting that the Empire or the ISB knew where Andor was hiding, because they were sort of watching him watch while he was watching everything else. But he also knew when it was time to hide and move out of there. And I mean that
I was gonna say he was pretty good at hiding.
Yeah,
but I mean, I guess that's his home, so he knows where to go.
Yeah,
it's like home advantage.
But that worked quite well. It did make the episode, or at least the Andor parts of the episode, better. And seeing Bix and saving her, and all of that just played off really well.
Do you think Luthen was being inspired by Marva's speech?
That's a really good question, actually. I think, so from my point of view and perspective on it, I think so, because Luthen, again, a few episodes prior, openly admitted how sort of dark he's got in creating the rebellion. He's having to go into very dark places. But I think hearing that speech kind of changed him.
Yeah, because I know he was there to kill Andor, but now he's seeing his mom give this great death speech, and he's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't kill Andor. Maybe he's got that same spark that Marva had.
Yeah, I'm still not 100% sure why they all want to kill Andor. I mean, I know that he left
because he's not on their side. He's just a mercenary. He knows things about people that need to be kept secret. Like Luthen, for example, Mr. Axis.
He did the job, and he got paid. He got what he wanted. So
maybe that was never the intention. Maybe they were supposed to bring Andor back, and then it's like, I mean, kind of like how Cassian does it at the beginning of Rogue One. He's like, okay, I got this guy. He's gonna slow down. Can't let him get taken by the Empire because he knows way too much information. So we're gonna kill you before you can get captured. And I think that was kind of the same goal that Luthen was throwing.
Yeah. I can
And
see that.
maybe Cassian's perspective in Rogue One is maybe learned a lot from Luthen.
Yeah, quite possibly.
And then it's Jyn that kind of brings the humanity back into him.
Yeah, that is a very, very strong possibility on that one. That maybe that is why he's, because in Rogue One he's very much. It's hard to point down what kind of character Cassian is in Rogue One. He does come across very sort of double agenty, or different agendas. Whereas in Andor, obviously the series, he's more focused. So I am interested to see where we go from here, because we know that he does save Bix and gets her out of there.
When I remember watching the finale last time, for some reason I thought Bix died, and then this one she didn't. I was like, okay, I have a really bad memory of this episode, and so I'm really glad I watched it. For the life of me, I kept thinking she was already the Empire just killed her, and which I think probably would have been a good choice for Andor. We could give him another reason to hate the Empire.
As logical as it would be to kill Bix, I think it would have been a bit too much in the finale. I mean, she still might end up dying, but I'm kind of thinking maybe if they all do die, it'll be because Death Star related, kind of to mirror how Cassian ends up dying.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking maybe they kept Bix alive because now they can see what the Empire does to people.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll spark another thing. It's like, okay, Bix was like this very strong, intelligent woman. Now she's this broken, scared human.
Yes.
And
yeah,
because I don't even know if she was delirious at the end when Cassian was sending her off, and she kept saying, "Cassian will find us. Cassian will find us." And then Cassian looks at her and says, "I will." So I don't even know if she believes that's actually Cassian that's with her, or if she was just trying to give confirmation to the rest of the crew on the ship.
Yeah, see, I've actually got written down that it could be either way, that she's either just so delirious and out of it that she has no idea what's going on, or it's trying to give hope that Cass will find them again, wherever they end up.
Yeah, because when he first finds her, she's like, "I always dreamed of you coming back," and that whole conversation kind of started off like maybe she thought she was in a dream, but at the same time, it seemed like she wasn't broken enough that she was still aware, but just really broken.
I mean, I guess like a scene like that is kind of open to viewer interpretation, as to which path you decide to go down. And I mean, for me, I'm going to say she's trying to give hope to the others, to say that Cassian will find them as the group wherever they end up, and she's not just delirious. Because even watching when she's watching the funeral, she's sort of singing along to the music, so she is with it to a degree. And I guess by that point, the torch
stones in the sky, stones in the sky.
Yeah, I guess the torture that she's been put through hasn't happened for a few days or something while the ISB are monitoring how the funeral planning's going. So she's kind of managed to get herself back with it more.
Yeah. But it definitely take time just because she's broken. She's not really. She's kind of like a third party. She's not really there to support the rebellion. She's just kind of just doing things to make money, as Deidre explained before. And maybe this is like another spark that's happening because it seems like a lot of people on Ferrix were like starting to rise up and running and getting shut down. It almost looked like a massacre, but still.
Yeah, I mean the whole funeral scene where you've got the ISB security guards standing there with their shields and in black outfits and stuff. Just
I thought
reminded.
those outfits were cool though.
I enjoyed seeing them, and they
It
did
kind of
look
reminded
cool.
me of Krennic's uniform, but black.
Yeah,
Looked really cool.
But I also had in my head playing at the same time Foo Fighters Pretender, the video.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why I was imagining that song going. I mean, I know why, because it's basically how the music video goes. But at the same time, it's like, no, I've got to get that. That's not what's being played. But I mean,
Yeah, that's actually pretty funny.
What did you think to the whole riot scene?
So I found it very interesting because when they're talking to Deidre before, she's like, "Okay, is everything ready for the funeral? Okay, the spaceport they're loosened. Okay, all these things that we're doing to set our trap. Okay, good." And the one guy's like, "Okay, yeah, they wanted 30, but then Daughters of Ferric fought back and said they wanted, so we give them 40. Local annoyance, blah." And they wanted to do it in midday, but then we pushed it back a couple hours. And so the Empire kind of has like this whole idea of what's going on, and they think they have control.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because when Cassian's sitting there in his quiet moment, it has that monologue going. The guy's like, concert effort is leaky, it's fragile, authority breaks, and you have like this whole buildup that Cassian's going, and then you come to this funeral, which seemed that they kept it the midday that they wanted originally and said, "Forget you, Empire," because the Empire seemed completely cut off guard.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they got set for the riot shields and everything, because they're like, okay, I hear it, but I don't see it. So something's going on. So we need to start getting ready just in case this is going to become a lot more chaotic.
And chaotic it did get.
Yeah, because you got Marvel saying, fight. It's easy for a dead person to say fight, but you need to do it. And it's very interesting that we got two sides of the ISB this time.
Yes.
Because we got Deidre doing her thing, finding something on the rebellion, but then you have the ISB agent that was giving her strife in the beginning of the season, and he's kind of investigating his own rebel activity. And we learn a little bit about Mon Mothma, and her story was very minimal to this story, but they're kind of concluding some of the stuff that she was doing this season. And I found her whole interaction with her husband very interesting. And I think it might have been started by our sketchy banker.
Yeah.
Because I don't think she believed he started gambling, but I think she was just doing it just to kind of, because she knows her driver's a spy.
Yes. Yeah. She. Is it confirmed that she knows, or she just heavily suspects?
I assume yes to both those questions. I don't think she knew at the beginning. I think she suspected in the beginning, but I think by this time she knows, because I think her banking activity and stuff might have been spilled out to the Empire, and she's like, who else would know other than my driver? Because I talked about my charity with my husband in the car, and I think that's why they did all the car scenes with her and her husband, and then having discussions at the time. But and then you got this driver who's just listening in. It's okay. The only people that know is my husband, me, and the driver. So suspicions go on, and so she's like, okay, well, I'm being investigated for my bank accounts and suspicious activity. So why don't I just accuse my husband of gambling again and start a little fight to make it believable, which worked for the most part.
Yeah. But
And her husband's like, someone's trying to take you down. And she's like, yeah, that's what's got me worried.
I think the interaction between her husband and obviously herself, it was the first time that I actually felt interested in knowing about their relationship, because it wasn't the normal, looking down on type thing. It didn't come across that way. It was more of a, this is the situation now, and kind of pondering how to play it.
Yeah, because it comes off like they're just, I don't know if she had that same marriage that she gave her daughter of courtship and not by choice. And so maybe that's why there's really no connection to him. And she's willing to kind of just throw her marriage out to throw off the ISB, because I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the first time I felt bad for the husband too.
Yeah.
And I was like, Mothma, like, this is the first time I'm looking at you and being in the wrong, but I get it. I'm like, this is a survival technique. And she's like, well, if you're gonna be gambling, don't do it here. Go to Canto Bite. She's like, I've got an image to uphold. And you believe him when he's like, I'm not gambling. I've held my end of the bargain. I haven't done it. And she's like, well, I'm going to accuse you anyways, because I just told the driver that we need some privacy, and he doesn't even turn off the comm. He's still listening. And she was counting on that.
Yeah, she's kind of playing her own game now.
Which is really cool, because now we're getting to see the Mon Mothma that we expect to be in charge of a rebellion.
Yeah.
Like, she's not some incapable woman of coming into the rebellion and saying, all right, let's rise up, let's do this. Nah, she's smart and she's calculated and she's got games.
Yeah.
She knows what she's doing. Because if her driver wasn't paying attention, she just got in a fight with her husband for no reason.
I definitely think you are right in the way that, now is the time that proper Mon Mothma's starting to come out.
Yeah, because I think she's kind of starting to get into Luthen's role now, where Luthen's lost everything and sacrificed everything. Like, here, she's probably going to lose her husband over this. Maybe he gets pulled in by the Empire and gets questioned and all this nonsense. Or he leaves her and they call it because of the gambling problem, because it's wasting a lot of money from our funds. And then marrying off the daughter, she might just be like completely sacrificing everything at this point.
Yeah, because I mean, when we do see Mothma in Return of the Jedi, for the few scenes that we do see her in, she's very, very much hopeful for the rebellion to win again, but you don't get the vibe that she's got a family, and it does make you wonder what she's lost to get where she is. And this is kind of the beginning of the end of it. And I mean, I know that I've said previously that why is the Mon Mothma story involved or included in certain episodes, but here it's even though it's so brief, it adds a lot to the character, like more than a lot of the other episodes that have had Mon Mothma in have actually shown.
Yeah.
And I think because we see the is it like a pre-wedding ceremony type thing, or because you've got the banker and his family, his wife and his son, and then you've got Mothma, her daughter, and her husband, and they're all wearing sort of very fancy clothing, and it kind of makes me wonder, is this how Mothma stays afloat? She's literally there now against her will to a degree, but she's giving away her daughter to keep her money safe.
Not only to keep her money safe, but to keep her secret safe. That way they're not tying her to funding a rebellion.
True. Yes. So she is literally giving up everything that she loves
for the greater good.
Yeah.
Even though we know she hates it because she's been fighting this up until this point, and then she finally gives in because she has no other choice.
Yeah. Like I said, I just think we've had more development of Mon Mothma and her family in this one brief scene, because you can see the hesitation on her face.
Yeah.
But her daughter's there and she's kind of up for it. And I was kind of thinking with that, is that because that's her daughter getting out of her family? Because apart from Val, and to a lesser extent, her daughter, Mothma's daughter's dad, so Mothma's husband, like the two don't get on. Mothma and her daughter do not get on well at all.
Maybe it's like one of those rebellious things, like my mom doesn't want me to do this, so I'm gonna show her. So yeah, we're doing this. So it could just be like a teenage rebellion, like daughter's like getting back at her mom's, like, oh, I know this is gonna annoy you, so therefore I'm doing this.
It's happening. Yeah.
Because she seemed very interested before, because she's like, oh yeah, dad approved it, and I already know what you think about it, so I'm gonna be doing this courtship preparation classes or whatever ceremonies. And so I think at this point, I think this is like the official ceremony for it. They look so freaking young though. It's like, okay, what's your plan now? Whose house you moving into?
Yeah, because I mean, they're what, 14?
He's 14 and 13.
Yeah. So it comes across as very much a like Romeo and Juliet-esque scenario where they're both young lovers that kind of shouldn't be but are, and I'm hoping that it doesn't carry on going down that route, because we all know what happens in Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the difference with Romeo and Juliet though is that both families didn't want them to be interested or like get married or date and all that, and so their idea was to trick everybody in that they killed themselves, and then both don't know the thing, and then they just both die. So this one is both consensual from the parents, so it doesn't seem like there's any resistance on the two.
I have to question that though, because obviously Mothma herself is not happy with it, but kind of going along because it's what her daughter wants to do as a way to rebel.
The dad's like all for it though.
Yeah, and I'm kind of wondering what the banker's wife is also thinking, because there's no interaction between her and any other character at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be interested to find out what her thoughts are, because it doesn't seem sort of a normal thing that I guess judging by standards today, where you have to be of a certain age to get married and whatnot. But
Right.
it just seems like, would she be thinking that this arranged marriage is a good thing, or like
I don't know, because it is a Chandrila tradition.
Yeah.
And so the banker and the wife probably come from there, and it's like, okay, for us this is a normal situation. But Mon Mothma, she's more, I've been here in Coruscant doing politics, and I'm around all these different cultures and stuff, so I'm kind of evolving past my traditional roots. So I think Mothma is the only one that's probably like against all of it. And I feel like we're going to see a little bit more on the next season, because we have the ISB saying gambling, that kind of makes sense a little bit, but she's still of an interest, so keep an eye on her.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if there's going to be more controversy and more development on that side to see if her daughter ends up becoming a good ploy to hide everything, because of that gets her in favor with this banker who's going to help her with all of this. But maybe that banker goes down instead of Mothma, because we know Mon Mothma makes it all the way to Return of the Jedi. So all these other characters are expendable. That's the word I was looking for. All these other characters are expendable.
Yeah, that is true. And I mean, I kind of hope that a lot of these sort of, I'm going to say background characters, because they're not background characters, but they're not the main characters.
Right.
I'm kind of hoping that nothing happens to them in the grand sense of of everything.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it kind of becomes that cliche in a way, where it's like, oh yeah, the banker has been arrested and sentenced to a life in prison, when to the outside world he's just a banker. But I know, politically speaking, bankers don't always make the best judgment calls, because really they don't need to, because they've got money. But at the same time, it does become that cliche then, where it's like, oh yeah, the banker's in jail now, right? Never saw that one coming, did we?
Nope. Very, very interesting. I'm really curious to see where this storyline's going to go.
Yeah.
And for the love story that's going on, we got another possible love story going on. Because, like, jumping back down to the fight, we have Deidre, who gets hit on the head, and then you got Cyril, who picks up her gun, points it back behind her back, and says, "Go where I tell you." And then he does that to save her, and then they get into like this little thing, and she's all shaken up, and she's like looking at him, and she's like, "It's you." It's like, I suppose I should say thank you.
I'm sorry, that's just stalking on a massive level. I guess that Cyril probably didn't know that Deidre would be there, but
I was gonna say, like, he was there for a much different reason. He was there for Cassian. So him running into Deidre just happened to be, it's like, oh, you're here, and I know who you are. You're in trouble. You got hit in the head with a rock, so let me save you.
I did enjoy seeing the frail side of Deidre at that point, because she's
another humanizing, as we talked a little bit earlier.
Because she's cowering. She's trying to protect herself, trying to grab her weapon to, again, defend herself. And, it does show that at the end of the day, ISB or not, she is just a human.
Yeah. And kind of gives her kind of the same mentality, not the same mentality, but like the same characterization as Cyril, because they're both new to these leadership roles. And so
Yeah.
they haven't like fully learned how to keep their emotions in check. Because she seems very cold and focused on one thing, and then she's used to a controlled environment too. And now she's actually in the field. And the same thing happened with Cyril. It's like once things started blowing up and all that, they kind of lost focus and kind of needed to collect themselves. And I think that's kind of why those two characters are kind of meeting and connecting, is because in a sense they're similar.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I liked the fact that Cyril was the one to sort of save Deidre, but I found it very cringy because, again, it's Cyril and he did kind of stalk ish a bit. And I know that they're
Yeah,
more.
I've been stalking you these last few months, but I just saved your life. So you want
I
to grab
think,
some coffee?
yeah, I think I'm owed this now, and it's like, dude, really, come on. But no, I mean, the fact that Cyril was playing the bad guy to kind of blend in with everything else that was going on kind of worked well, but it's surprising how no one recognized him.
He was wearing a hat.
It's the hat thing again, isn't it?
It's the glasses of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Usually they put a cloak over their head and kind of like fit in Assassin's Creed style, but this time it was a hat. So I can tell why they didn't recognize him.
It was just one of those things that's like, he's wearing a hat. That is all that is different. He has the same face structure and everything. Nothing's changed about him.
Mm-mm.
And I mean that's just one of those tropes that annoys me in anything that has it in. You put on a hat and sunglasses and immediately nobody recognizes you. It's like that just wouldn't work.
That is true. But I mean, it's a Star Wars universe. A lot was going on right there. I mean, there was a huge battle going on. I mean,
that
literally
isn't
imagine just
saving
walking. Imagine just walking and then a stormtrooper just falls and hits the ground, and you look up and you got this guy that's been playing drums the whole time, just staring down. I thought that was funny. The guy just kicks the guy off the tower.
I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
I'm like, he's been playing drums since the beginning of the season, so he's been up there for a few months. He's like, all right, I'm ready. Let's kick the stormtrooper off this tower.
And I mean, did the stormtrooper even take a shot?
No, he just kind of was like walking up there, like do 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 do, and then the guy just sees him and kicks him off before the stormtrooper could react.
It's like, yeah, I mean that guy knows. Well, he's a drummer. He knows timing.
That is true. Because that stormtrooper is probably just going up there just to get a better advantage. He's like, ha ha ha. He's like, if I remember from what happened to Anakin and Obi-Wan, I need the high ground. And drummer's like, nope.
No, he's like, nah, my
He's like, I've got the high ground.
I have the highest ground. I like the fact that that Marva's funeral tablet thing was being used as a weapon as well, which kind of it made me smile in the way that she was then involved in the fight, which is what she would have liked to have been part of.
Yeah, because she was trying to get involved, but she was just too frail at the time.
So then be used as a weapon was just. I don't know whether it was somewhat intentional to be that way, but I just think it worked so well, as with that callback of, if I could do it again, I would, and
Yeah,
now he is literally being used to fight the Empire.
that is true. Oh man, her character from the start as well has been a very good build up, and I think they kind of ended her character on a really good note.
Yeah, I'm glad that they didn't take it too far with her, because it could have gone one of two ways. She could have either died sort of naturally how she did, which was, I think, the best option, or she could have potentially been killed in front of Cassian in a sort of similar scenario where there's a meeting, or a riot's going to start and the Empire just shoots her. And I'm glad that they didn't do that.
Yeah, because I think there's a little bit more inspiring for Andor.
Yeah,
or Cassian at least. Just because he sees the amount of fight that she has, and maybe it's something he's going to carry on, as kind of like what I spoke about in one of the previous episodes. Is you got Clem, who was kind of trying to get people to calm down. It's like, okay, don't get yourself hurt, because the Empire will kill you. And then you got Marva, who's like, yeah, let's start on a full-on planetary riot. Let's go.
Yeah, it's sort of. I think the combination of the two for Cassian, like being the third part of that,
Because he's been like Clem from pretty much.
yeah, and then but we do then get to see the Marva side. So Cassian really is the best of both worlds.
A good mixture.
Yeah, yeah.
And we didn't mention the flashback with Clem.
Yes, yeah.
Because we haven't had a flashback in a while. Since like the third episode.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I completely sort of glazed over the fact that it was an actual flashback. I don't know why I glazed over it, but I was like, I knew who the characters were. I think I was just so engrossed in.
There's just a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah. But yeah, so obviously, we did have that flashback.
Kind of showing him, it's like, oh yeah, most people are looking up, but we're looking down. And it's like, oh, there's equipment. It's like, let's clean it. It was like a fun memory for Cassian. And I think it was kind of like him just kind of letting go and kind of remembering Marva a little bit and just listening to what Clem was saying about her.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to jump in on, speaking of a nice little flashback, in the shipyard, they had a similar ship to Ghost from Rebels. So that was kind of a cool little Easter egg. And I know there was something else that you want to talk about in that shipyard.
Yeah. A couple of different things, but one of them kind of makes sense. The other one doesn't really, and it's the Y-wing.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's a Y-wing from sort of like the rebellion era, which I get that might exist at the time, but really speaking, it should have been a Clone Wars era Y-wing. And I mean, don't get me wrong, great inclusion. Always happy to see a Y-wing, because I think they are massively underrated. But at the same time, it's kind of like, why is it there? Because the backstory to the Y-wings is a lot of the armor plating got stripped off. to make it more maneuverable and, all sci-fi technobabble.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, would that really have been done on such a backwards planet as Ferrix? And like, why is there even a Y-wing there? It didn't make sense. But at the same time, the ship that they make the getaway on had the same Y-wing engines on it. So it's kind of like, okay, so they strapped Y-wing engines to a different ship, or engines are basically interchangeable at this point.
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking at a Reddit page right now, and it's actually very interesting. I guess Andor takes place around the same time as Rebels, because I guess one of the comments here says Deidre is alarmed about what happened on Kessel, and that's a direct reference to the opening two-parter of Rebels.
Yes. Yeah.
I actually never noticed that until reading this. Very interesting. So it's very possible that they probably got this Y-wing by the time. But I mean, even then, like, now that I'm thinking about it, because even if it is on the same timeline as Rebels, there's only a limited amount of the Y-wings that Hera was able to get, because she was only able to get a prototype, and they weren't able to build any more that quickly, let alone have a random one over on Ferrix.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no.
And,
was it a Y-wing that Hera got, or was the bomber?
That was the B-wing, but I think
The B-wing, yeah. I got those mixed up.
I think there was the inclusion of the Y-wing, and I think it was stated then as well that there wasn't many of those available. So I think it,
because the rebellion didn't have the resources that the Empire has, so they were basically running on scraps. Like, all their ships were ships that they scavenged.
yeah. But I mean, I guess it's kind of plausible in a way that it was salvaged by the rebellion. Because let's assume that Ferrix gets left alone by the Empire after the events of this season, which you can kind of imagine.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see Ferrix again.
And Cassian knows that there's at least some flyable ships in that shipyard. So
he found one of them.
Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking maybe he went back and got the Y-wing and various parts, and it's a stretch, but it's the only thing that I can sort of make sense of.
If Andor had a big influence on the ships,
Yeah,
because I have a feeling that they probably have a different way that they're going to go about with it. I think they're just kind of tossing it because maybe it could have been like Bell's ship or Kaz's ship, or just a random model that just happened to be there.
I mean, let's face it, that is the most likely option, that it is just a random inclusion. And like I say, I'm always happy to see a Y-wing. It's just it would have felt better if it was kind of even like a partially stripped back Clone Wars era that's been left there. That would have just felt better.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I wonder where they're going to go with it, and I'm sure they'll go more into detail on how they got all the ships and stuff, and I'm sure it's in the comics and other stuff. But it's very interesting that they decided to include a Y-wing. I want to see an X-wing in one of these things, just randomly, because
we did get the couple of X-wings previously
in Andor.
Yeah, they were parked. They were the black and grey painted.
Oh yeah, that's right. We did discuss that. Yeah, because they're at one of the bases.
Yeah, so we do get a couple of X-wings, and
so we know they have X-wings at this point.
Yeah, Which again, I think that's why I'm questioning, like, why is there a random Y-wing just parked there? Because it doesn't make sense. That they are literally using these ships.
Maybe the Empire has it and it's just chilling there, and maybe they detained it and just sat there, because I know that they did mention an X-wing pilot, or pretty sure it was X-wing, that they caught him and then killed him and made it look like a failure. And so maybe they commandeered this and just tossed it there since they're on Ferrix and they're about to transport it somewhere else.
Maybe, but I mean,
there's so many different theories we can go on why it's there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, essentially, it's just a nice little Easter egg that in a sort of blink and you miss it moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I say, it's always good to see it. But if it was me, I would have had a slightly more stripped back Clone Wars era version.
Yeah, very possible. But I mean, it's only a couple cool things in that shipyard, and then Andor's like, "All right, peace out, guys." And it's very interesting that we have all these characters there hunting Andor. He manages to evade all of them. And then he just sneaks into the Luthen ship and is like, "Hey, how's it going?" It's like, "So you're here visiting?"
I mean, how did Andor get to that ship? How did he get to Luthen's ship, quicker than a dude on a speeder?
He could have been on a speeder. They didn't really show too much of his travel between the two. I just kind of assumed it was a speeder that he got there on.
I mean,
Plus time skip. We don't know how long of a time skip either. Like you can also just assume it was a time skip. Like this could have been like hours later.
I mean, that's true, but at the same time, you do see Luthen sort of starting to walk away when the riot kicks off.
Yeah.
And
how far is Ferrix or that little town from his ship?
Far enough away that he needs a speeder that's going at a speed, but because you don't see another speeder there, so either Andor's managed to teleport, and because otherwise the paths would have crossed at some point, because Andor's there saving Bix and getting the ship in the air and everything.
Yeah,
but you don't see another speeder there. You don't see,
and he doesn't interact with the other people that are trying to get him. So how does he know that they're there? And where he parked his ship or landed his ship is probably the better way to say it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like there's so many questions that haven't been answered on this, because I mean, yeah, it's plausible in some way that Andor was told that there's a ship parked somewhere. So would he really go investigate it unless he knew for certain what it was? And I kind of felt like it was very much a cop-out moment again, where
convenient writing.
Yeah, Luthen gets on his ship and his ship's not responding to him. And then you see Cassian come out of hiding in the ship, and it's like, right, okay, this is.
You brought him here to kill me. Sorry, I had to.
I know. It has to be done. It does. But it's like Cassian's then there somehow, and you don't know like how he got there, or you're just meant to sort of believe.
Maybe Cassian's just more resourceful than we thought. I mean, like we see how resourceful he is throughout the whole season, and so I'm just gonna leave it as a time skip, and maybe he was on another speeder and just hit it so Luthen wouldn't be suspicious.
I mean, I can take
that's another way to conveniently write that out too.
Yeah, I can take the fact that, you know, if Cass got the jump on them and managed to get there first, despite the fact not knowing that there was a spaceship right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would make sense though, because I guess it could be, you know, written as sheer curiosity of thinking that maybe Luthen came back for Cassian in one way, shape, or form, and that's roughly where he parked his ship before.
I mean, Cassian's got friends too. Like, he was able to sneak on to Ferrix very easily. And so they're like, oh yeah, by the way, these ships came in. Oh, I recognize that ship. Where'd it land? Oh, over there. Okay. After I save Bix, I'll go check it out. Because he was at the shipyard. And so maybe he could have gotten some records there. Like, this is us excusing their lack of detail on the writing, considering it's a whole season of lots of detail, except this.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm sort of struggling to comprehend where this, you know, where this ending came from, because like you say, you know, it was a lot of thought put into the plot, and it all made sense up until this one point.
As they say in football, it's a fumble.
Don't get me started on the football thing.
Okay, American football, my bad.
There we go. but no, I mean, that is a good enough analogy that kind of makes sense. You know, I think the writers dropped the ball on the finale, but by simply the fact that they had so much going on from sort of episode 1 to episode 11 of this season. You know, so it was like, how do we wrap up this season well enough that, you know, it keeps people interested, but at the same time we can kind of, you know, just get it wrapped up nicely and plan for season 2.
I think it's like one of those cases where you have too many story arcs that you're trying to wrap them all up at the same time, that lazy writing comes in at some point. Because it works on all the other episodes, because it's like, okay, this story is doing this, they're doing this. Now how are we going to tie it all back together? Okay, so we got Cassian going to save Bix, and then you got Vel and Kaz doing this thing over here. You got Cyril and Deidre. Luthen sent it back to his ship. And you got this big rebellion starting here. It's like, how do we make it make sense? Oh, let's just have him meet Luthen on the ship. And it's a TV show. It's like, okay, we don't really have. We'll just do a time skip, and that'll excuse all the details in between. Because then it even comes to the point. It's like, how did Cassian know that Luthen was there to kill him?
Yeah,
it's like there's a lot of information that's like, how does Cassian know a lot of this?
I mean, I guess with why or how Cassian thought that Luthen was there to kill him is simply because, you know, in one way, logic. And I hate thinking like that, but you know, it's why else would Luthen be on that planet apart from to get the guy that could have been brilliant but just wanted to go his own way. And I'm just on that one though, I do like how emotional Cassian was getting. It's like, you know, just kill me then. And you've got
they're a hard man to find. Well, I'm making it easy.
Yeah, and you know, you've got you've got the blaster left there by Luthen, and he looks at it, and then he just bursts out laughing, and it's like, and that's where I think Luthen seeing Marva's speech really changed perspectives for him, because now he's like, I can use this guy better, and I'm not going to go in with the hard approach. I'm going to go
because you can just manipulate him with his mom.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, interesting. But we're not going to know what happens between these two characters until next season. And I think that's, for me, is why this season finale felt underwhelming, because everything was cool, and then you just kind of have like this. It's like, okay, well, these two characters met. There's not going to be any talk. Okay, so we're going to save that character development for the next season.
Yeah, I just don't like how this season ended, and it's one of those ones where unfortunately nothing can really change my mind on it, because of how high up every other episode has been, to then get to this point just didn't feel good. It didn't feel natural or right. That we've had the prison break episode. We've had the entire season, to be fair, and then we get to this, and it's like, yeah, all the characters are meeting up on this one planet, but at the same time, it's like, why? They don't
kill Cassian.
Yeah, but I mean that's assuming that he's going to be there, and I mean we all know he is, but at the same time, it's like.
And here's a very interesting perspective too. I was just thinking, you have the rebels there to find Cassian to kill him, but you have our bad guys there to not kill him. It's kind of funny, like the rule switch. I know bad guys want information, but
no, that is an interesting perspective. That, yeah, you've got the bad guys that are weirdly somehow the good guys,
trying to keep him alive.
Yeah.
Still for bad reasons. Well, maybe Cyril wants to bring him to justice, but Deidre has different intentions.
Yeah, but that's Deidre. But it is an interesting perspective, and it's weird how Cassian just can be seen walking through the smoke and everything with Bix, and nobody thinks to try and stop him or find him or see if he's even there. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier, that they left Bix unguarded, and that was their mistake.
Yeah, and then this whole rebellion started, so it's easy for him to. He's like, okay, distraction. So they're focused on surviving and not dying. So I become the less interesting target.
Yeah.
So definitely very interesting on how they did everything, honestly. And I do really like the end credit scene, which I didn't see the first time either.
Interesting, because I think it's the Marvel fan in me that I have to stay through the credits no matter what, just in case.
Yeah.
And when I saw it initially, I was like, okay, that's the things that they were building in the prison. And then the camera pans out and you see what they're building.
It's like, that's a Death Star.
Yeah.
Which answered some questions for me, because I always wondered, I'm like, how did they build this machine? I'm sure they didn't have a bunch of like stormtroopers mechanics or whatnot in spacesuits flying around the entire thing trying to put things together. But it makes sense that it's like buzz droid type mechanical droids building it.
Yeah,
So I thought that was kind of cool.
I always thought it would be like a mixture of sort of slave labor building it and droids.
Yeah.
And to see that it was droids doing maybe more like the fiddly parts.
Because I'm gonna say you are right about the slave labor, because that's probably the whole point of what Cassian was put in that prison, is to show us that, okay, so we have people building it and droids putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
But very interesting. So I'm really excited for season 2. Even though this episode was underwhelming, I'm excited to see what they're going to do next season.
Yeah, because I mean, we already know that next season kind of gets us closer to Rogue One. Anyway,
yeah, there's going to be a lot more time jumps in season 2, from what I hear.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how they do that, because obviously, we know the fate of Andor anyway. So I think it will be. I think there's less story to tell over a grand arc of things, But I think the stories that they do tell will be. I'm going to say more cinematic, because there's the whole. Is it K2SO?
Yeah. So we're going to get K2SO.
Yeah, and how Cassian gets him, and does the whole reprogramming thing. So I think season 2 will be very much a good one to watch.
Absolutely. So that one should be coming out towards the beginning of 2025, I believe, if not at the end of this year. So something to look forward to. So yeah, lots of cool stuff to go on. So we just finished Andor season 1. So we're going to be jumping on to Mando season 3. So be expecting that for next week. And we'll follow Amanda's journey all the way till the end and see what's going on there. So we'll catch you guys next week. And just remember, before you guys go, check the link in our description so you can be able to check our Instagram and our Discord so you can talk with other fans. Also check our merch. We got some Black Series and some cool t-shirts. So definitely take a look at those, guys. So we'll catch you guys next week. May the Force
be with you
always.